Much better. Much better and much better here. Do 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 do. Mm-hmm. Do do do. Hello. Hey, what's up, Tech for Your Needs? I'm glad somebody came in earlier this time. Last time I went to stream, it was like 10 minutes before anybody came on, so. Anything you want to talk about in particular? Just let me know in the comments. So I guess I can kind of go off from, I watched a stream earlier by Jay Williams, and he was talking about answering questions having to do with Note 10 Plus versus S10 and talking about iPhones and things like that. And one of the things I thought was interesting was that came up was the advantages that some phones have over others with unlimited 4K 60 frame per second streaming. And so far, the iPhone has unlimited, and a lot of other phones like the LG G8, like I have here, only goes up to like 6 minutes, and some of the newer phones, including the Note, only go up to 8 minutes, which I think is an interesting thing. Part of that, I believe, is the buffer rate. So 4K, even like when I shoot 1080p video at 60 frame per second using my phone, I did a 2-minute video the other day, and that was about 300 meg. So a 4K video, every couple minutes, you're reaching like half a gig. So you could do a 20-minute 4K video and reach like 10 gig file. And I don't think that the buffer that the camera uses in storage or RAM is enough on phones to be able to support that. I know that these guys that shoot YouTube Red cameras have to have like a 500 gig solid state drive to buffer the footage on the camera, and then it transfers it off to mass storage. So I think that's similar with your phone. I mean, 4K is 4K, and you're talking about like maybe 500 meg every minute. That's quite something. No, the iPhone is not limited, which is one of the reasons why when I did a lot of my videos, the first probably 10 videos on my channel are all using my iPhone 10. Since in about the last month, I've been using the LG G8, and actually I need to put a video out on it, but I wanted to wait until I had more time with it in my hands, and so I'm looking forward to next Tuesday when Apple does their new announcement. I know a lot of people are like, boo, iPhones, or, whatever, but they don't always come up with crazy stuff. But usually by the time they put stuff on their devices, they're waiting to optimize it. They're waiting for the technologies to fit their needs, because like back in the 70s, they already had an iPad-like device, but the technology wasn't available to meet it yet. Same thing with, under the screen fingerprint readers. are still quite slow compared to behind. So yeah, that dark mode is really nice. Actually, funny that you mentioned that because I've been running iOS 13 on my iPad Pro 9.7 inch. It's the first generation of the 9.7 inch iPad Pro. It's only the 32 gig, and I want to upgrade, but I'm waiting till the second generation USB-C models. Hopefully, those will have the newer FaceTime too. That's supposed to be improved speed and some things like that. And I really like it though. I mean, everything's dark, and it's true dark mode where everything is pure black. Some of the Android phones, I've noticed, like on my OnePlus 6T, I have a theme on there. But if you use the default dark mode, it's actually a dark gray. So that doesn't even improve battery life because even though OLED pixels are able to turn off and on completely and they're able to change and kind of fade, if those pixels are on, they're using power whether they're on all the way or not. And so gray pixels aren't going to use any less than colored or white pixels necessarily would use, not enough to make it important. Now you might save some battery life, but the optimal is the true all black mode. Like I have on my G8 here, all black there. You can see YouTube, all black. My messages is kind of a gray, but they haven't updated that yet for it. So I'll be curious to see what comes out with the new Pixel. I actually think it looks quite nice. They've reduced the bezel sizes as far as I can tell. And I hope they maintain the true front-facing stereo speakers because that would be nice. It'd be really nice to see, all these companies are going to they're either still having mono speaker firing out the bottom, or like the G8 here has the bottom firing speaker plus the front speaker. So let's see here. Give you an example of copyright free music. There right there's halfway volume. That's as loud as I want to go because I don't want to wake up my son. Yeah, HTC had really good sound with their boom sound. But what's interesting with the G8 is they actually put the speaker behind, one of the speakers behind the, excuse me, my nose itches, allergies, behind the display so that the audio is more at you. But what's weird is they don't do stereo sound. It's actually like dual channel. So you get the same thing coming from behind the display as you do from the sides. So if your head isn't positioned just right, your ears can actually almost hear a delay, even though they're both coming at the same time. It'd be nice if they had just done a sole, like, we're going to put both the speakers behind the display. Because it's not like you actually need the bottom one when you're talking on the phone. And if they put the other ones behind completely, it also would mean holes that could be sealed up. Now, I know there is a hole on the side for like the microphone and stuff, but I was actually talking to my wife about, I don't know if you've seen the phone that came out not too long ago as a concept device, actually, for a buttonless and portless phone. Basically, there are points that you'd squeeze on for like your power button and for your volume button. And as far as charging, it was wireless charging. As far as headphones, you had to use Bluetooth. And then as far as data connection, they were working at a way basically for the next concept that data could go through wirelessly, kind of like Qi charging, except for initially it would be almost with a proprietary connector so that the points line up with pins. And that's what I think this first model has, some pins on the back, kind of like how the iPad has pins on the side, and some other phones use pins for their camera connections and things like that. But I thought it was an interesting idea. Completely waterproof because there's no holes. The audio comes out through, basically there's these micro holes in the display that are so small that water droplets and moisture can't make their way through, but sound can come through. So that's interesting. I'm hoping that these iPhones that are coming out next week will actually be a jump in technology, kind of like the 5S to the 6 was a change in design and cameras and processor and RAM and some things like that. You had RAM increases, and they had like dual core to quad core changes, and now, I mean, iPhones use 6-core processors, and they have 4 gigs of RAM and up to 256 gigs of storage. And now these next ones are rumored to actually start. The 10R update, it was going to be starting with 64 gigs of storage, which I kind of understand because that's supposed to be more of like well, I don't use a lot of storage. They don't have, not having triple cameras on it and things like that means they'll use less storage for videos and photos. And just the market that's aimed after, then the update for the 10S and 10S Max are set to start at 128 gigs of storage, and then 256 and 512 gig options, which is interesting because we'll have to see, does that mean that at the price points you'll actually get more storage? Like, how will they price mark things? Because it's said that the 10S will start at $999 and the 10S Max will start at $1099. So will that mean for storage bumps? Will you be able to get a 256 gig iPhone for like the update to the 10S for the same price as the base storage of the 10S Max? Or will they be, I imagine what it will be is $150 in between if it's anything like the past. So it'll be $999, $1149, and $1299 for the 10S, the iPhone 11 Pro, I think is what they're going to call it. And then the Pro Max will be $1099, $1249, and $1399 maybe. That'll be interesting to see. And then be curious to see what they do with their triple cameras. Will it be a wide angle? Will it be an additional zoom? Will it be like a black and white sensor for improved night images? It could be both. I mean, it could be a wide angle that can also, and then a standard and a zoom, and they could use one of those sensors. Like the standard sensor could also be a black and white sensor that is capable of doing, like, it can shoot in black and white and color. And the black and white part of it would be used for improved night imagery. Like there's a couple other companies that do that. So or if they got a hold of the Sony, I think it's IMX586 sensor that a lot of phones are using. It's a 48 megapixel. I could see them doing where you can shoot where you'll have a 12 megapixel and then you can do a 12 at 2 and 4 and up to 4 times. Basically, it's just cropping the pixels. But then for night imagery as well, it would use 4 pixels to create a 12 megapixel image from basically a 48 megapixel image that starts off, because that's what a lot of other companies do. So they don't have to have multiple sensors necessarily. You have one sensor that can shoot a 12 megapixel or take 48 megapixels, combining 4 pixels of each to make a 12 megapixel for night images. And then you have a standard 12 megapixel image and you have a wide angle lens. So basically 3 sensors are capable of making multiple images. So I guess we'll have to wait and see. And then I've been seeing a lot of crazy stuff going on with the Note line. I'll be curious to see if they'll issue an update that will fix that, or gonna issue like when the Android 10 update for Samsung will One UI version 2 or whatever fix some of the issues, because I've seen some things like issues with battery life, issues with notifications not coming through, issues with what else? Fingerprint detection on the screen, whether you have a screen protector over it or not. I've seen lots of issues. So one thing I'm hoping to see, maybe with the S11 and the Note 11 next year, is wireless DeX. So you could pull out your, let's say this is a Note, you pull it out, or Samsung phone, S phone, and you would connect it to your TV, and by doing so, you'd be able to basically use it as like a wireless mouse and keyboard, and your TV would be the monitor, and you would be able to basically have it as like a multi-window display up there. So you could, have a YouTube stream going on one side and Twitter on the other, or you could technically you could even be doing YouTube from your phone, live streaming, and then have the chat and a pop out over on your TV. So I guess it might end up being a short stream tonight, or I might join back in a little bit. I hope that you all enjoyed this video. It was kind of a multi-topic discussion, a little bit of a response to some things that I saw on live streams earlier today, and a little bit of just here's my thoughts on technology that's out and technology that's coming out, and let's look to the future, and let's everything, day by day, more technology is coming out, newer technology is coming out, and people basically, by the time you get a phone in your hand, it's old, because they're already working on technology years ahead of time. So I don't know. It's all about decisions, and I don't think iOS is any better or worse than Android, and I don't think Android's any better or worse than iOS, so we shall see. The Pixel 4 is set to come out. I'm expecting that will be maybe in the next 2 or 3 weeks. I know in the past they like to do their announcement after Apple does theirs. So maybe not this next week, but the following week, or maybe the beginning of October. And it will be interesting to see how they handle the dual cameras, as I know currently, it's one camera on the back. They've done dual cameras on the front for wide angle selfies, but I'll be curious to see if that will improve some of the facial 3D mapping. I know that Android 10 has that built in by default. They actually have improved the facial mapping so that it can fade into the background a little bit better with like bokeh, and also with the different studio lighting. So hopefully we'll see some improvements with video cameras with the Pixel series 2, and as well. And I am curious to see how they're going to implement the whole desktop mode with Android 10 on the Pixel series, because I know there are some things that are originally going to be Pixel only options, kind of like how they have the where you dock the Pixel phone and on a wireless dock, and it becomes like a little Google Hub. As far as that, I see improvements with AI technology and AR on the next Pixel phones. So improved auto call answering and call rejection and spam filtering, and improved image recognition in photos, as to be able to be like, oh, these photos all have the same person, and whether or not you've labeled it or not, then if you go through and label it, it's improved. I mean, I know they've had that out for a while, but I'll be curious to see the improvements on stuff like that. Even as far as if somebody sends you a photo of themselves and you're getting it in Google Messages, well, then they correlate that with photos you have and be like, hey, this person just sent you this photo of themselves, and you have 20 photos in your album. We suggest that that's this person. But my concern is, when does AI become a privacy concern? Or do we choose to give up some privacy to improve AI and to improve the technology for voice recognition, facial recognition, camera, AI, and are companies getting to get to the point where they combine these things? Are companies working at things like, for example, if, let's say, I lost my hearing, but I could mouth words, will AI technology be able to take what I'm mouthing, turn that into words, recognize it, look it up, and then respond back to me either with visual cues if I'm deaf, or with audio if it's just that I lost my voice? Is any company working on kind of a multi-sensory AI where it not only uses voice but facial cues in order to improve the technology? I mean, I could see that Face ID, face unlock combined with voice recognition could improve things substantially, because somebody couldn't just like be like, oh, look here a second. They hold your phone up and it unlocks, and then, or like you get pulled over by the police and you look over and your phone all of a sudden is unlocked and they're getting into it. They would have to maybe get you to say a key phrase or phrases that you've chosen. So I'm looking forward to the advancements in technology when it comes to AI for security as well. So be fun. Also, for not only phone security, but home security, you could have specific channels on your TV that are locked out for your kids, like depending on their age. So it recognizes which kids are in the room and what it allows to play. So if an older kid is in the room and you've approved certain like PG rated videos for them, they are fine watching them. But then the younger kid walks in the room, it might stop if you only want them watching G rated stuff. Or, it would be like, oh, hey, we recognize little brother is in the room. We know that both of you like a specific cartoon or specific TV show or series or whatever, and that pops up. But then we run into concerns of more and more things that the parents have to set up, because obviously a kid can't agree to, oh, we're going to take your facial information and use that to give you suggested videos or whatever. But the parents could program in their kids' faces or whatever, and that would be something that would be encrypted and only stored on device side. And you could choose to have that shared across other devices on the network. So you program it into your phone and it goes through and is picked up on TV, but you still have to put in a password so somebody can't intercept it. It's encrypted on one end and decrypted on the other. I see technology going in all sorts of crazy directions. The idea that our phones are a lot of times more secure than our computer means that things like DeX mode, and I know that Huawei and some other companies have had concepts that where your phone can be used kind of like a little computer and you can plug it in and hook a mouse and stuff up to it, is awesome, because then you have the same security across one device for multiple uses, and you also have the same level of images, and you've taken photos and they don't have to sync across the cloud, they're already there. I know that the Chicago Police Department has started testing and regularly putting out using the Note index mode for searching when they pull somebody over, searching their database, and it's secured with biometrics and pins, and there's timeout things. So like if they haven't accessed it in a little bit, it times out, so that way somebody can't just hop in their vehicle and get access to the database. There's all sorts of things that it uses because of fingerprint scanner on the back, facial biometrics. And to me, that's awesome that they have access to that on their phone through an app, and then when they hook into DeX, they have access on that. So they don't have to create multiple interfaces to the database because it's all working through one app, basically. And that's got to be improved over a lot of government still is using like Windows 7 and stuff like that. So it's got to be improved. So technology is a great tool, especially if it's in the right hands. And when it's in the wrong hands, then we have things like some of these hacks that we've been hearing about. And as far as these hacks, a lot of people are saying, well, that means iOS isn't as secure as we thought. Well, here's the issue. It wasn't just on iPhones and iPads and iOSs and devices. That same hack was also done to Windows and Android. It was actually done by the Chinese government and a Chinese group trying to get into some Middle Eastern people's phones and get access to their information because of the overwhelming hatred for Muslims and the Chinese government and some of the Chinese culture. And so these hackers decided, oh, we're going to aim at iOS devices. And part of that is because for the longest time in a lot of the high areas that have high percentage of Muslims, iPhones were one of the most popular devices, particularly because of the encryption and security in iOS and in iMessage, and the fact that it's encrypted end to end, and Apple doesn't have access to that. It's all encrypted and anonymized for them, and then but Windows machines are cheaper and they can be encrypted as well. And so, and then of course, they aimed at all those, but Google decided, hey, we're going to say it's an iOS thing because they don't want to admit that they're equally as prone to being hacked, and they don't want to admit that they have security issues that haven't been patched either. And actually, Apple patched it as soon as they knew about it. Back in February, initially, they did a patch, and it was for iOS. I think it was 12.1.4 at the time. Patched that issue. Wherever devices are popular, and whatever devices are popular, which right now basically PCs, Macs, Android devices, iPhones, is everything is popular. So, and the more and more that technology becomes in sync, as in companies are making it so you can take an iOS app and bring it into their database and convert it to an app compatible for their version of Android. Like Huawei has done that, Xiaomi has done that. So that means if they can create a hack in an app or for an app, potentially they can bring that hack in and convert it just as easily. And then they just have to put out one string of messages or one faulty app. They just have to create it once, convert it, and they can hit all those operating systems. And given there's a group of them, and yeah, Apple has a lot of developers, but they're also focusing on their own apps, their own services, on looking through all the apps that are submitted to the App Store, things like that. Yeah, they focus on security, but one's bound to leak through. But at least as soon as they hear about it, they tend to plug the hole. They don't tend to be like, well, there's some security issue with Android version 9.0, and well, we're going to wait. We don't even have the developer version of what fixes that to be able to put our own skin on and fix. So it's going to be 6 months before that fixes out. The advantage of iPhones and the fact that iPhones are the only devices that run iOS, iPhones, and iPads is Apple can create an update, push it out, and it's going to hit 98% of the devices because that's how many are capable of running that. And in the past, they've actually updated previous generational versions of iOS. Like iOS 12 came out, they actually did updates for like iOS 11.4 that repaired the same issue that was with iOS 12, but on devices that couldn't be updated to iOS 12 right away. And so they fix, 100% of their devices as soon as they hear about it. Within like a week or less, it's fixed. The problem with so many different variants of Android and so many different Android devices can be security. So last I knew, there was about 13,000 different Android devices when it comes to like hardware and everything, because all these different companies, from the smallest to the biggest, from Samsung and Google and LG and Sony and Xiaomi and Huawei, Umidigi, Ulefone, Digu, all these Chinese companies, there's thousands of different phones out there and that are all being used. So when there's a security issue, basically they can only fix it for the primary phones. They push it out, and then the companies have to decide whether they're going to fix it or not. And sometimes they don't. So you could have an unsecured device for months that never gets secured, or doesn't get secured for 6 months, but by the time they publish that security, there's another security issue. I'm not saying that iOS is necessarily more secure than Android. I'm just saying that when there's an issue, it tends to get fixed faster, and that's one of the concerns. Now, obviously, I use both. I love my LG G8, and the cameras on that thing, some of the images I've been able to get are beautiful. There's some incredible stuff that comes off from this phone. Just amazing things that you can do. But some companies are better at some things than others, and some companies are worse. Like, Samsung kind of throws everything into a phone, but they don't necessarily have the best cameras out there, or the best speaker, or the best screens. But they have really good everything, and they combine stuff together. And then other companies will kind of pick and choose. So, we're gonna keep price down, but we're gonna have really good, good enough cameras. But we're gonna do improved storage, and we're gonna do all this stuff first, and we're gonna keep price down by not including wireless charging, and not including reverse charging, and not including an S Pen, some of that stuff. OnePlus has really good devices. Like the OnePlus 7 Pro compared to like the S10 series has basically all the same stuff. Yeah, you don't get expandable memory, but how many people need that with 128 gigs of storage, or 256 gigs of storage, and 12 gigs of RAM, or 500? You can get these crazy phones with a lot more storage than people actually need. And the other reason they did that is the UFS 3.0 storage is way faster than any SD card is capable of handling at the time. And they don't want to limit functionality by allowing slower storage type via SD card extended media storage compared to the primary storage, because then there would have to be like, well, we're going to limit what you can put on the SD card to media, and then now we're going to have to limit your how many photos you can take, one after the other real quick, and what quality of video you can take. We're going to have to reduce that 4K video from 8 minutes to 3 minutes, because we can't buffer as much and then transfer it over to external storage. We'd rather keep it internal, or it has to be on internal for a half an hour before we'll let it transfer over to external. And then what happens if something happens to your phone? So I can see where they compromise in some areas, and I can see where they choose to look at the necessities and the most important things for most consumers and include them. And I think that's why companies still go to these other companies like LG and OnePlus, because they don't throw in everything, but they include the most used functions and the most important things. So. Hey, I saw you on a stream earlier, Dr. Donna Walter. I think I saw you on Jay Will's stream, didn't I? Something about, was it you have like 5 years plus 6 months left on your residency? So. So, yeah, I remember that. How'd you happen to find my channel? I've just been kind of chilling here, and yeah, I'm glad it's not 5 years. And yeah, my uncle's a doctor, funny enough. He's actually a missionary in Africa. They spent about 12 years in Uganda, and then the government came in and took over all the. Yeah, TK, yep. TK is awesome. And King Mike is awesome. Jay Williams is awesome. I actually like some of the bigger names that Jay Williams kind of tends to call media, but because they are informative, even if they are biased. So, where were you? Where were you doing mission work for? So, my uncle, he started off working for NASA. He worked for Armstrong back in the day. He actually got to fly with him while they did the test flights to check for vitals to make sure that nothing was wrong. Then he ended up in praying. He actually got approved to be an astronaut, and then he prayed, and God kind of directed him elsewhere. So they ended up in Uganda for about 12 years, and then they ended up in a small country called Lesotho down in the middle of South Africa. And then the same thing kind of happened there. The government came in, took over the church, took over the hospital, took over everything. And so now they're in Tanzania, and they've been there for about, it's been 6 or 8 years now. Built schools, built churches, built hospitals, built onto schools, built onto churches, built onto hospitals, put in a bunch of wells. I think they put in, what did they have, their 7th well in Tanzania now, which is quite something because those are like, I think minimally they're 10 grand a piece. And they've had to do multiple digs on some of them. So I think they've gotten close to about $100,000 in wells between donations and having to redig and things like that. So and it's pretty awesome because talking about technology, I mean, we have that advantage of yeah, Lyme with a genetic variation of malaria. Yeah, they have to get their shots like every so many months or whatever, and so they've been fortunate enough to stay away from that. I actually did a mission trip to Mississippi after Hurricane Katrina, and that was interesting. So, what was I saying? Oh, as far as technology, it's been kind of neat what they've been able to do because they're able to basically set up like a little tower and then send out phones to people, and basically that they can connect through that tower and kind of like this little intranet, so that when the doctors go out, they can give a phone to them, and then like when they're in dire circumstances where they can't be there with them every day, and they can't bring them in, and families taking care of them. So if they really need something, they're able to call or text and basically act as like their own network. And it's pretty cool. And my uncle is able to Skype with like my cousins, and when my aunt and uncle are able to Skype with their grandbabies and things like that. So it's pretty cool. But like, they go and then they come back here, and it's been a couple of years in between or so. Or it used to be like 4 years in between. So like my uncle went over there and he had like an iPhone 4, and he comes back here and like the iPhone 8 and the iPhone 10 and stuff is out, and everything's like, whoa, they get quite the culture shock and technology shock. But hopefully they're getting ready to retire soon, because let's see, my uncle is 60 now, close to 60, and my aunt's about the same age, so they should be retiring soon. But when he graduated from medical school, Dr. Pepper actually sent a bunch of stuff like posters and things like that. So yeah, there's definitely a need in the States too. I gotta agree with that. It's like with adoption. I think that more people need to think about adopting in the United States, and I think the government needs to think about that too, because it can be more expensive to adopt within the States than it is to adopt from like Korea and stuff, unless you do back when my sister-in-law was adopted. I mean, it was still expensive, and you're talking 37 years ago almost. So cell phones back when I was most active had shoulder straps. Yeah, bag phones. My dad actually was using one of those when he first started working for the state of Michigan back in 98, 99. And it's crazy how the advancements have been made, but how long they used those bag phones for, even before they switched over, even when newer and better technology was out, was crazy. And I think it's because they put boat anchors. That's funny. Good one. Back in then, when they spent all this money on these phones and putting out 10, 15, $20,000 on a cell phone, they're going to use them as long as they can. I mean, state of Michigan and state governments and even federal government is still using like Windows XP and Windows 7 on their devices, so I'll be curious to see where that goes. But I still think that's funny. Boat anchors. So, you have any questions for me or anything you want to discuss in particular? It's just kind of chilling here tonight and went through a bunch of ideas. Yeah, I live in Michigan. Yeah. Don't want to get into that. Politics and government here is quite awful when it comes to certain things and certain aspects. And I live in a small town, actually, halfway between Grand Rapids and Lansing. So, a town of about 2,200 people at most. So, I've lived in Michigan all my life. I lived here for, let's see, that was about the first 24 years of my life. And then I moved and I lived over by DeWitt and then Okemos. And that was about 3 years. And then I lived in Jackson for a couple of years, and now I'm back home. So circumstances change, and my wife, my son, and I live with my parents for now. So, Chicago, Gary area. Hey, TKM, what's up, bud? Tech King Mike, awesome. It's good to see some well-known names on my page joining me over here. I told LB he needs to let you know I'll tag team with him or anybody else, and I'll take iOS or Android side. I like a challenge. Either way, they both have their positives and negatives, and I can go knock some heads. So, Dr. Donna, as far as Chicago and Gary and Deanna area, all I can think about is Gary, Indiana, the area when you drive by that smells like sulfur. Ugh. Yeah, that would be so much fun. I'm just getting started, and I think it'd be great to have, you have these guys that, well, I know that LB doesn't even really do many videos. Ooh, lost focus. No, there we go. LB doesn't even really do many videos on his own channel or anything, and um, it's pretty cool to see some of those other YouTubers on there and them shouting out to me. And my channel is actually kind of gotten a boost since, and it's inspired me to keep going. I've hit almost 50 subscribers. I was at like 35. So since then, I mean, I've gotten quite a bit. I do have a Twitter. Actually, it's just Michael Pepper TT is what it's called. You'll see my picture on there. Let me see if I can pull up my Twitter feed and post it in the thing real quick. Are the mills working yet? Oh, the windmills? Is that what you're talking about? Awesome. Thanks for following me, man. Yeah, oh, come on. There we go. Yeah, Tech King Mike. So, what was pretty cool is after that video that you did with them going at each other and LB getting knocked out, I went over and I was on Eric Computer Solution ECS's stream, and I actually got to join him that night and was live streaming with him and 2 or 3 other people, depending at the time, for about 2 hours. So that was pretty fun. Steel mills, I don't know. I don't know where those are at. I live in, like I said, towards Grand Rapids. Well, between Grand Rapids and Lansing, small town called Lake Odessa. Funny enough, we don't have a lake called Odessa. It's actually called Jordan Lake. But yeah, he's really good people. It was awesome. He actually kind of motivated me to do this live streaming thing, and so far so good. I mean, what's the worst that can happen? Nobody join you and you talk to yourself. I mean, I did that for a little bit. It's a good way to get ideas out, and then it kind of motivates me on what videos I want to do because people ask questions, people make comments, people come on, and you kind of get to see what your reach is. So it's been a really good fun time. I got to actually I got to talk to Jay Williams on the phone the other night. He was doing a live stream, and then right after I talked to him, his stream got cut off, and everybody was joking that YouTube wasn't happy because he was making comments against them and cut him off. So that was kind of fun. But I'm actually been working on quite a bit of content. It's hard, it takes money. Yeah, a lot of the mills were closed down in the 70s. Yeah, it does take time, and I've been working on it. I mean, being a dad, my wife works outside the home. I stay at home right now. I lost my job, and so I try to be well informed. A lot of it comes from either other YouTubers and them saying something, and I go and do the research, or um, news articles, like even the Google's primary news feed, just like the articles for you on Chrome, give me a lot of ideas. And then I've always been one of those people just fascinated with technology concepts and wanting to kind of get these ideas that are in my head out. And even though I doubt I'll ever be able to, sell concepts to some company for a bunch of money, or I don't have any idea where it's going, it's just fun to discuss. It's fun to talk about hypotheticals. It's fun to do comparative analysis. Highly analytical person, which can be really good, but it can also be really bad. Um, but when it comes to technology, it's fun. You break it down, you can really see what's out there and explore the world and inform other people. That's what I really am hoping to do, is just let other people see technology through how I see things, and maybe it's a little bit different than other YouTubers that they're following or other YouTubers that they see. I just try to be a real person, realistic here. I don't try to be, and claim that I'm anything that I'm not. So it's pretty cool. Hey, 49 subscribers. Just need one more. Anyways, and I work my way one day at a time, one step at a time, like anybody else can do. It's a highly competitive world in YouTube. But that being said, since it doesn't cost you anything but time, it's a really good place to start. And you never know who or what company will see you and join you and be like, hey, we like what he has to say. We like his attitude, his mood, his knowledge, or whatever. We want to offer him some, incentives or help him out or improve. And that's all I want to do is, reach one person at a time and uh, inform, let people see an opinion from somebody that isn't being paid to give an opinion, which is what I appreciate about like you, Tech King Mike, and like Jay Williams and some of these other guys. Is it's not like they're being paid $1,000 or a couple $100 or money by companies to say this company is better than that. It's what they use. And it's all opinions. That's what I think people get so up in arms and saying this is right and this is wrong or this is better than that. But it all depends on what your need is, what you use, and what your budget is. Like, I have seriously close to $5,000 worth of phones, my iPad. I mean, I have tons of technology, close to $10,000 in technology, but that's not what I paid for it. Okay, see ya. Hopefully, yeah. I should still be here as long as it's not too long and people are still watching and asking questions and comments and stuff. So, Brazil. Oh, yeah. You speak Portuguese? You speak any Spanish? Because I speak a little bit. I actually took 3 years in high school and 2 years in college. So, Portuguese. Oh, I wish. The briefcase. Yeah. the money, yeah, I don't. It's not why I do this. If I was for money, I wouldn't be on here. I'd probably be doing something else. It's, you do it because it's what you enjoy. That's what I think. And because it's fun and, other people enjoy what you're doing and want to join you and want to experience, what you have to say. So, and it's pretty cool. What time, or I should say, what time and what day is it in Brazil there? It's one place I've never been and would actually like to go someday. And I've heard that in some of these other countries, like data speeds are better than they are here. How's your cellular service down there? I know well, I'm on Wi-Fi here, but when I'm out and about, I'll get pretty good speeds on AT&T. I've gotten speeds up to about 180 megabit per second down and 50, 60, 70, 80 up. Usually up the max upload I get around is like 30 and download 120, 150 if I'm close to towers. The funny thing is I've been in an AT&T store and gotten really bad reception, and then I've been in like a Verizon store and gotten good reception on an AT&T phone, which is funny to me. I think let's see here, that I might call it a night for now, and I hope the replay crew will post comments down below. And thank you for joining me tonight. And as always, please like, subscribe, comment down below. And as always, have a good day and God bless you.